Good morning and welcome everyone. Today we have a couple of people, Ree and Sharon. Sharon, Ree's had some problems with the NDIS obtaining an electric wheelchair and a ramp and accessible bathroom, and she's been through quite an ordeal, and it's been quite a few years, the whole process. So, Ree and Sharon, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having us.
So, Ree, do you just want to start from the beginning of getting on the NDIS and the whole process that you've gone through up until now?
Yes, well, I had a fall on the 25th of March 2019, and I'd done a lot of damage in my back, and I started off on a high walker, and then because I couldn't get supports, I kept having multiple falls, and I had a broken femur and 2 broken hips and several different problems with my spine. And it ended up going to permanent. So that's where I am now. You know what I mean?
Right. So you applied for the NDIS, you got on,
Yes.
obviously. So now, what are the things are you requesting from the NDIS?
I would love a wheelchair, and I'd love a ramp to be able to go outside, because I've been stuck indoors since my fall, and yeah, it's just impossible to be able to see anything or to be able to even go to a doctor's appointment. Can't do anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So you're actually after an electric wheelchair, is that correct?
Yes, to make it easier.
Yeah. So what did the NDIS say when you first applied for the electric wheelchair?
Oh, well, I've been having problems for a long time. They just keep knocking it back, saying it's not, I don't need it, basically, even though I've got 35 reports all up now saying that it's permanent. And I've had scans and x-rays. They've seen everything. They've got all the reports with my spinal damage and cord damage and everything.
And so the reason they said no to the electric wheelchair, it was because they said you don't meet the requirements?
I don't meet the requirements. I don't tick their boxes. And no one understands. Sharon might be able to.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, Maria's been through the AAT, took quite a number of years, and in that time, her condition deteriorated. I'll say it as it is, and I always have with Ree. She's now a paraplegic. She has no feeling from the waist down. We ended up getting a report from the AAT that didn't include a wheelchair still. So Marie then got an NDIS plan that effectively didn't have a wheelchair in it for a paraplegic. We re-employed an OT probably around last December, who did a whole lot of assessments. Effectively, from my point of view, did a lot of cut and paste, spent thousands of dollars. We still had nothing of any tangible merit to give to the NDIS, as there wasn't any trial concluded or any funding put aside for the wheelchair. So what we've had to do is change the OT very quickly, which we did about, say, 6 weeks ago or so. He's now done more work in 6 weeks than what the other one had done in 6 or 7 months. But even though Ree's had a plan that's a 6-month plan that's sort of a stopgap, it's only given her hire and trial of this equipment. Ree needs bariatric equipment, and she lives regionally, so there is no bariatric equipment to hire. It takes months to get someone that will actually even do an assessment on this chair. This chair takes 3 months to even be made up. So Ree's in correct me if I'm wrong, Ree, 9 metre by 4 metre room, including a bathroom and a kitchenette. There is no room to even hold a trial. The ramp in front of her room is rotten, structural damage. It's dangerous for her to even leave her home. We have to prove everything we need to do to get rid of this equipment And as Mr. Shorten said, that the scheme was never designed, in his words, not mine, everyday Australians with a disability, but it's actually for the most severely and profoundly disabled in our community. And Ree is that. She is trapped in a bed. We've only just recently organised her a lifter because the new OT's got the requirements for that. We've sent letters to every politician in Australia. We just want her out of her bed, be able to shower like a normal person, have equipment, be able to leave her room to go out in the sunshine. And this is, to me, a case of neglect, Jeff. Sorry, a lot to take in, but there's a lot of stuff in this to unpack.
Well, you've got over 4 years of reports and going through the AAT process.
Yep. Everything to substantiate it.
Yeah. How's that affected your mental health, Ree, going through all of this?
Well, I started self-harming, and I just started doing research and started to find end of life, because that's what my option is at the moment. And I found out there's only 3 countries I can get that done in.
Well, I don't think you'd meet that criteria for end of life, but I understand where you're coming from. I really do. I just don't understand. You're basically paraplegic, and the NDIS still won't recognise it, even though you've got doctors' reports, OT reports.
Yes, 5 different OT reports. I've got 35 reports all up.
Yep. The last plan we got only had hire and trial, and I would have thought they would have put the funding in there for that, considering the amount of evidence that we had, Jeff. So now it's stretched it out another few months. We are in the process of doing another review for this, where we have got absolutely all that equipment in the reports. We've got everything we need at the moment, except for the trial. There's also another situation around Ree, in that she has to get overseas to see her very sick son soon, and she can't even leave her room. So we're at the moment trying to get collapsible bariatric portable wheelchairs organised and those sorts of things in an extended period out of the country. But we see that the collapsible chair, it will fill the stopgap. The chair that we can get our hands on is, I think, how much was it, Ray?
3,200.
Yeah, and that solves the immediate problem. We can hire a cherry picker, almost hoist, to get her out of the room, but that's so degrading, and it's just an awful situation for it to have to be like that, but we can try and get her out. But we've also got to put in a review at the same time where Ree has to have this essential equipment, and I'm thinking that all we should really need to do is submit, here's the cost, here's the supporting evidence, please give us the money to buy this. But at every hurdle, we have to do this, it has to be done this way. Marie had an LAC, she was made intensive. It's now the NDIS saying, this is your psychosocial recovery coach's job to get this done for you. And the NDIS LASP is supposed to be handling all the support coordination, but there's no one to contact. She has no contact. She's part of this new team that's been made up for the intensive people, so she has to more or less take a number and rely on them to get back to her.
And that's that's one of my issues with the NDIS, with all the reports that we're required to have, that we do get and support. And it all comes down to the OT writing out and putting in the proper wording and the proper structure if we do get these things. But the NDIS is failing to be based around individual needs and wants. Do you agree?
Absolutely.
So, I've tried contacting Bill Short, and all he does is refer me off to the NDIS. Has that happened to you as well?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I think the other frustrating part is that Ree's had a chair. It's broken. It's been broken for quite some time, number of years. We can replace that chair. She's used that chair for many years. It's exactly the same replacement chair, but yet it will still need an OT report to be written up around reusing what she's already had before, which costs more money, which we can get, but because Ree's regional, it's very difficult to get an OT. So I'm a remote psychosocial support coordinator. Her OT is remote at the moment because she's regional. So it's very difficult to get anyone to be able to do a wheelchair trial and assessment. It's hard enough to, excuse my doorbell, it's hard enough to get the actual bariatric chair to trial in the first place. You can't get them. You can't hire them. So we
You're right. Keep going.
yeah. Well, we can find the chair. We know the size. They're the right weight limit by 50, 60 kilo over what's required. They're the right width. I would say if Ree's a paraplegic and needs a wheelchair, we've got the supporting evidence. Please buy Ree an electric wheelchair, please. She's driven this one before. It's common sense.
Well, I have a good friend who's paraplegic, and he got a wheelchair, I don't know, 12, 18 months ago, and he had to actually go away and get fitted for it, make sure it was the right height and right width and
Yep, exactly.
tick all the boxes. And Ree can't do that because she's in a regional area.
And in a room where a trial can't take place. Look, we know that the ideal chair for Ree is a lifted chair, and they're about $45,000. The chair Ree's got that's broken, I think that came in at how much, Ree, when you looked at it last time?
$3,200.
Yep. So $3,200 mid-cost AT to solve an immediate problem until we could get the other solution sorted, which will take months. But we are still tied because we haven't got an OT to write a report on a chair she's already had. And they won't do it remotely. They have to do it face-to-face. So it's just hurdle after hurdle after hurdle. So what we're going to do is go in for another review next week with everything on it, Jeff, so that there shouldn't be anything that they can argue with, but that we want to just simply be able to purchase the mid-cost wheelchair as a stopgap, or especially the collapsible wheelchair for her to go overseas first.
Yep.
And then when she comes back, what are we going to have in place for it? Yes, she'd have that chair. And we're thinking we might just go for the high-end chair when they get back. But we just need this little collapsible bariatric wheelchair now and a ramp or something sorted to get her out of that room.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Do you think the NDIS is doing this deliberately to discourage people from applying?
I think that the NDIS and providers that work for larger organisations and OTs, and I'm not saying the one we've got now, are all too concerned about covering their own butts instead of giving the clients what they actually need. So they create the unnecessary red tape in the middle to cover themselves rather than caring for the client.
And I agree with that. To find a really good AT is extremely hard. And especially in regional and rural and remote areas, it's really hard to get those services. It's all based in the large metropolitan areas. But what concerns me is, not just the lack of independence, but the lack to be able to go and have a shower or go outside, and the long-term mental health issues.
So everyone was worried about COVID, and imagine how Ree feels at the moment, confined to a bed. So the other thing is, when you've got the NDIS writing my LAC will connect me with supports and services, etc., they're just not doing the work. It's left up to the PRC support coordinator, which I don't mind. I'll advocate for any of my clients with everything I've got. But then when we try to make contact with them to make things like this happen, it's just not forthcoming. They're not actually doing the work. So when someone becomes made intensive, the NDIS seem to look after them. So we think it worked a lot better when we actually had an LAC that she was connected to, and that she also had a psychosocial recovery coach, and that she could ring that person when she wanted to. That's just been taken away from her now. So she hasn't even got the contact person.
And that's part of the problem with the LACs. I know for a fact that the LACs have no work experience in the disability field. They have no knowledge of the disability field. I know there's people from the tax office and LACs. People used to work for Centrelink LACs. Where I live, there's a person who was a cleaner previous to becoming an LAC. I had 6 LACs in 18 months. Not one person helped, and I struggled. And I actually rang up the NDIS and told them, that's it, I'm done with the LACs. I want nothing to do with them. I'm not.
Yep.
And they said, oh, no, you have to. And I said, well, no, I don't. And they said, yeah, you do. I ended up getting a coordinator of supports, and she's been absolutely fantastic. I've been able to get the things that I need. And that's part of the problem with people such as Ree. We're having untrained, unskilled people in these positions.
Yep, I agree, Jeff. A family member of mine applied and saw a job for an LAC last week, in fact, and inquired about it, and they said, no experience necessary. We can teach you what you need in 3 months.
Yeah, you'd be lucky to do it in 3 years.
That's what I feel too. It's very complex. You need to know everything about the laws, the bylaws. They're taking laymen off the street at the moment.
And that's not helping the clients of the NDIS. And it makes it hard for people like yourself as well, because you take all this extra burden on trying to help your clients.
That's why I work for myself, and that's why I do it, is because these people need advocacy and they need a voice, and they need someone to go in there and fight for them, and they don't want to rock the boat, but I don't mind doing it at any time, because it's important for me that Ree just has the basics in life that she needs. So we've sent emails to every politician just about in Australia, haven't we, Ree?
Yeah, and they just keep sending them to the NDIS, nothing happens.
Yeah, so you've gone to your local member and they haven't been able to help?
Yep, haven't.
It just gets referred back to the minister.
Yeah, so you've gone to your local federal member, he's referred it to them, Bill Shorten, and Bill Shorten's referred it back to the NDIS.
Well, I even offered for Bill Shorten to come and stay at my place for a week or two and see what it's like.
You wouldn't do that.
No, he wouldn't. I tried everything.
It's like walking to a lottery office and saying, I want the 60 million for Thursday night. Thanks.
I know, right?
Look, I'm not laughing at you. I'm just laughing at the whole.
No, we sort of laugh through a lot of this, because if you don't, you cry. But we also have a mantra that we think outside the square. So there's always a way that we can think of getting some action. But what happens, it gets referred back to the minister's office and you get one of these glib emails. Ree's got an interesting story about the complaint that she made to Bill Shorten's office, haven't you, Ree?
Yeah.
Did you want to tell that?
Yeah, tell us.
You can. You go for it.
Your memory. What did it actually turn into when you put it in complaint?
Oh, they came back and blamed you.
No, they actually, Marie had a complaint put in about her.
Oh, yeah,
Really?
by someone, I don't know who.
Really?
Yep. So we complained about the OT and the LAC and exactly what we're telling you now. So we put in a complaint, and I put a type, look, this is an unhuman situation. She's being neglected, and we put it all in there in the complaint. And then it appears that either the person that took the complaint or the OT have more or less said Marie's at high risk, which she is, but it's turned in as a complaint Someone's put in a complaint about Ree and her situation. That's all that happened.
Wow, that's
And
amazing.
then she's been made intensive. So we couldn't work with this previous OT. Every time we asked her, where's the letter of recommendation, where's this, she'd push back like we were hassling her. She over-guessed Ree's weight by 100 kilo, which is really Ree. Just it was a total debacle. But we complained about that. We complained about the ways the LACs were handling Ree's case. And as we said, it's just made her intensive. And now we've got a team looking after her for the last 2 or 3 months. And we haven't even heard from any of this team because this team doesn't exist yet.
Well, it does exist.
It's a new team within the NDIS for the intent. It does on paper, but not in practice. So here we are. You know.
Yeah, so they're probably being paid. Your team's being paid for the last couple of months, but haven't shown up. Oh, Sharon's dropped out. Oh, there she is.
No, can you hear me?
Yep, you're right.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
No, Ree's got excellent workers. Ree's supposed to be funded 24/7. She's not getting that at the moment because there's just no funding for that. Any client that needs 24/7 becomes part of this intensive team, but yet there's no responsiveness from the intensive team. Ree's one of 2 that I've got. The other one is extremely disabled, ABI, borderline personality, epilepsy, just everything you could name. And we went in for a review early. He'd had a support coordinator for a year that hadn't touched him. So I stepped in with that one as well. Same thing, underfunded, yet they know that these people are intensive. They underfund them. Now the other client's going without supports because there's nothing to pay the support workers. We lodged the review 5 or 6 weeks ago. This is another one that's gone into this intensive group, this team, and they're the most unresponsive team I've ever come across in my entire 8-9 years with the NDIS.
Well, you would assume somebody that's intensive that they would have immediate care.
You would, and they're not. They say because they're intensive, it's going to take longer.
So
when you're looking at Ree in 4 years for a wheelchair and bed bound, this just gets ridiculous.
Absolutely. Being bed bound, if it was me, I'd be worrying about pressure sores, my mental health, weight gain, a whole range of things. And the longer it takes, the worse these issues
we
become.
Got a nurse in. Yeah, we got a nurse in to have a look at it. And Ree does have a couple of small ones. But when we actually got somebody from the NDIS to ring us back about Ree's plan, they told us that we could not claim that nursing service from her therapy budget, even though she has pressure sores.
This is, I'm really sorry to hear all this, but it's not.
This is neglect, and I can't help.
It is. It's 100% abuse.
Yep.
Absolutely.
No,
and what options do we have left after you've gone to the NDIS, you've gone to the AAT? What other options are there?
Well, it's coming up this Monday where we're going to put in the biggest change of situation review I've ever done in my life. It's got everything. So everything that's behind it, every recommendation, every quote I've got, everything's going in. And then I suppose we'll have to sit back and wait probably 6 to 8 weeks because she's intensive to get a reply on it. And it will keep going, Jeff. So I'll keep in contact with you and let you know the progress of what happens after Monday. But I'm expecting someone should look at it Tuesday, in my opinion, from the way that this is an urgent matter.
Well, it actually needs to be looked at today.
Oh, absolutely. But it's a breach of it's human rights. She hasn't got any at the moment. So we can ring them. Ree's actually expecting a call this morning from them as well. So we're just interested to see what they're going to say this morning, but we don't get any outcomes.
Well, being a breach of duty of care and that is abuse.
It is.
You know, why has this gone this far? Why isn't Bill Shorten's office doing something? I just don't understand how this has gotten to this point, and there's no blowback to the NDIS. There's no blowback to Bill Shorten.
Yeah. So there's another instance, as Ree's in a regional town. We didn't want a planner in her regional town for confidentiality and privacy issues.
Yeah.
So after we wrote to Bill Shorten's office, he seemed to give a little bit of a kick to somebody because we got a response from a planner, but that planner was in the same town as her. So we've had to write back and say, look, it's on her file not to have a local one. Please change the planner so she gets an objective planner. And that's probably going to stall it a day or two, probably the reason why Ree's getting the call this morning. But because it's a small regional town, to have the planner in the immediate town is actually a negative, not a positive for Ree, because there's a lot of issues that go back to her childhood. She feels embarrassed about her situation and doesn't want a small local community to know about it. So it's very restricting in that way as well. We just want a good mental health disability planner that can help us get this across the line today. And we just haven't got anyone to make contact with.
Well, I think you need more than that. I think you actually need someone from Bill Shorten's office to step in and take control and make sure these things are done straight away. And for those people who live in the larger areas, I'm a stickler for my privacy, my confidentiality. I have stipulations everywhere that they can't talk about me in any way, shape or form, because I want my privacy. And in small towns, in country towns, everyone knows everyone's business. You've got people in the city have no idea what it's like. What to know what small country towns are like. It is an issue, and I'm surprised that the NDIS don't take that into consideration when they start trying to provide different avenues for people. So the outcomes that you want the collapsible chair to bridge the gap to the electric wheelchair.
Yep, that would get her overseas as well.
You need a ramp so Ree can go outside because you don't want the frame is rotting. Is that correct?
$30,000 it was quoted, and we're going to be quite a few weeks. That's why we're thinking of like a cherry picker at this stage. Sounds extreme, but it's a raised platform that goes up and down from a veranda that will enable her to get out of her room and down onto the driveway.
Oh, okay, because I'm surprised they'll give you a raised one that goes up and down. They usually just...
Probably won't, but what do we do? Wait 3 months to get a ramp built. So the whole structure's rotten and unsafe, Jeff. So to even put her on that veranda and it collapses would be catastrophe. So I've got to get her out of that room and in some kind of a chair and into the yard. It might need to hire something like that as a stopgap, but it's the only way I can get her out of that room.
So there's the collapsible chair, the wheelchair, the electric wheelchair, the ramp, and to have the bathroom accessible.
Yep. Yeah. And also there's other things like an extension to get out of the country for longer than a few weeks and using STA overseas. And there's another dynamic there as well. Ree's son is 31 with serious progressive MS, a little daughter who's under 1, and Ree just, apart from her situation, is desperate to visit her son before he deteriorates any further. So hence why we're going with the collapsible chair as a priority right now, today, sort of thing.
Look, I have MS. That's what actually destroyed my optic nerves. That's what left me blind, was MS.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
And I belong to a support group here in Armidale where I live for MS. And there's quite a few, I'd say about a dozen people that belong to that support group. And being able to access that support group has benefited me so much in the long term, and that would benefit Ree to be able to get out and talk to people with MS or talk to people who have similar issues that she's having.
Because her son's now on oxygen, Jeff, so he can't travel on a plane to meet Ree.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
for some,
a lot on
some,
its plate.
yeah, look, for some people it never rains. It's torrential rain. It's pouring all the time. And but if we can get someone to come in as soon as possible and to start organising these things. Look, I spoke to Ree the other day on the phone. I think that you've done everything that I would have done. The only thing I haven't done that I would probably do is go to the media.
Yep, this is the next step. What I'm
That's
saying,
our next step.
yeah. What I said to Ree was, look, it's going to be submitted on Monday, and the minute it's submitted would be when I'm making that phone call. It's coming in now. Look at it. It's urgent. Please view it today. And also CC Bill Shorten's office in it. I want to see what the outcome of this is, and if any of the things in this review are knocked back, and any of them, it would be going to the media, Jeff, because everything is essential. It's essential equipment when you're talking about shower transfer systems and ramps and wheelchairs, etc. It's not like she's asking for a lot, Jeff.
No, and I understand that. But I'd be going to the media now. I wouldn't be waiting. If it gets out to the media, then, Bill Shorten's office might push it along a lot quicker, which is what needs to happen.
Yep. Obviously, that's Ree's choice and control. Whatever she wants me to do, I'll go along with her. So, yeah, we think we're a pretty good team. So we get stuff done outside the box. But this is just getting ridiculous, Jeff. So really appreciate you taking this on.
No, look, my channel's like Blind Advocate, and where I live, I'm either an advocate, an activist, or a troublemaker. So I'm quite boisterous when it comes to people with disabilities and their rights. And
yeah, you too. So Ree always says, "Oh, let's go crazy, Karen," on them. So sometimes you have to get quite determined and put your foot down and know that's not acceptable. And I think one of the best comments, or that's being sardonic, worst comments we had was, "We're not a crisis centre." That's what the last LAC said to Ree. "We know it's urgent, but we're not a crisis centre."
Well, they're supposed to be able to handle a crisis. That's why they're there. So that statement, that just goes to show you the lack of knowledge and experience and empathy and compassion.
There isn't much.
There's none. And I always say people are worried about their own pay packets before they worry about anybody else.
This particular LAC was actually siding with the OT that took 6-7 months to do anything and told us to back off and let her do her job. And then that's when she put in the crisis centre. And good on Ree for choice and control. We just said, right, we're not having that LAC anymore because of that. Changed OT. And then got made intensive. So now we're under this complex team that doesn't exist. So we've gone from the frying pan to the fire.
The complex team does exist. They're getting paid. You just don't see them.
Well, apparently that's what Ree's under.
Yeah, we have someone in the basement. Yeah, bring Jenny up. Hi, Jenny.
Hi, sorry. How you doing?
Good. You have a comment or a question or?
Oh, look, I'm sorry. I came in a little bit late, but I was extremely interested because I'm at the AAT process at the moment, heading to hearing, just waiting along the way, and I guess I've been in the AAT at the tribunal for in excess of 3 years now, and they're talking about a hearing which we haven't been given a date in January, so that'll make it 3.5 years. So I just feel like this process is just not good enough.
Ree's just come out of the AAT, Jenny.
How does yeah look,
Tell her, Ree.
Yeah, well, it's a really hard run, and it makes us worse. You know what I mean? It puts us backwards an extra 100 steps.
Look, I think the issue for me is that I've worked in the social welfare field for a long time, and this is about complex home mods for me to make it safe, make my home safe in a couple of areas in the kitchen and out in my driveway, which is really it's really broken, quite seriously, and I've been asking for a bit of help. It's obviously deteriorated over the last 3.5 years, and now they're saying, oh look, it looks really bad, that's the homeowner's responsibility. And I've been saying, well, hang on a minute, it was bad when I applied 4 years ago, when I started this process 4 years ago, and we can tell from the pictures we provided to you 4 years ago it wasn't as bad. And why would I be spending money on it in the interim trying to repair stuff when I was hoping for some support along the way to be able to have some safe mobility to and from my front door?
AAT's refused Ree basic mobility in a wheelchair after 3 years of the AAT. So
Yep.
It's just a fruitless process because of the amount of reports Ree had to get. Was 33, I think. Even 35. With full documentation, she didn't get it. And then now we're battling the NDIS for it.
I just don't know that this is the difficulty. Even their independent OT, which I permitted, because I knew that they'd say there were safety concerns. And then she's like, yep, there's definite safety concerns. No issues whatsoever about there being safety concerns. But it's unsafe for everybody. So, that's just tough. So this is a homeowner's responsibility. And that's like
everyday expense for a homeowner, they're saying.
That is just crazy stuff. And the stuff that I need inside the house is not about the kitchen modifications that I require, and not about, they're going, oh well, it's you've got an old house, so you probably need to renovate your kitchen anyway. And I'm like, my kitchen is very functional for the average Joe Blow, thank you very much. It's just not functional for somebody who can't see. And every OT has come in there and gone, oh crikey, that is really bad. That is really bad. It's unsafe. So yes, we have to have an arch move because it's in the way of where the stove is, and it's just dangerous for somebody blind to use a gas stove with from the side. It's just ridiculous. The
government's talking about the blowout cost of the NDIS and they're going to try and save money. Well, look at the bureaucracy. How much is being wasted on, multiple reports from OTs and physios
Yep.
and doctors,
Agree. Yep.
and all the applications that are sent into the NDIS and to the AAT.
Mm-hmm.
And the
You
legal
know-
fees alone would have cost more than what I was asking for. It's got to be
Exactly.
for the same for Ray as well, because how can you possibly
Mm.
justify that you're spending more on legal fees of saying no? And what do they think? People want to back down and run away? Well, I'm sorry, you're just putting up a red flag at a bull for me. You're just saying no, and I'm not afraid of stepping in. But what I am aware of is I probably won't get legal representation. And as a blind person, it's really hard. I don't know. I don't want to diminish, capacity on any level, but you're basically, using voice to text software. You're trying to hear the voice to text software, run your own case, be able to. It's like an interpreter service to be able to do that. So I've asked for double the time in hearing to be able to allow for that. So now we're looking at a 5-day hearing. Can you imagine the cost of that with lawyers?
Yes.
That alone should be saying, okay, we'll give it to you because it will be, a quarter of the cost of what we'll spend, what we need to spend. I'm not suggesting that.
Are you on the NDIS? Are you on the NDIS now?
Yes, I'm on the NDIS, and
Yes.
I'm
just all gets.
It's just that they're saying no. I've got OTs. I've had 3 OTs through this process because people have left and moved on. So they've all said yes.
Yeah.
They've all come in. They've all co-signed reports and said yes. Their independent OT has said yes. That's 4 people, who are saying yes.
And obviously they'd relate their reports back to how this impacts with your disability.
Oh, with absolutely 100%. We've filled in their stupid home modification templates, which are just the most senseless templates in themselves because they're not user friendly. They're not making sense. They're very repetitive in nature. But no, look, I have gone to extraordinary lengths. As I said, I've worked in the social welfare arena myself, and I've gone to incredible lengths. And in fact, my first OT, I raised issues with the Quality and Assurance Commission because she hadn't addressed all the issues of the reasonable and necessary, and I went back and made sure, not because she just because she was lazy, basically, and her report was woeful. But regardless, my point is I have made sure that every element, including research, is being attached to all these reports to it, and confer with the evidence requirements within the reasonable and necessary. There is reports, and their latest commentary is, well, some of my justification was that their disability accommodation guidelines, or it's not standards, they won't. Because it's disability accommodation, we've justified it by saying, look, here it is in your disability accommodation standards, and they're saying, well, that's just disability accommodation, that's specialist accommodation, so sorry, it doesn't apply to a homeowner. And I'm saying, how ridiculous is that? You're a homeowner, it doesn't apply to you, and I'm saying I'm a homeowner, and you're saying it's okay for somebody who's in specialist accommodation. Maybe I should go there instead. Maybe I should go there. That'll save you money, won't it?
Oh, well, yeah, absolutely. But look, and as Ree will say, the AAT costs millions and millions. They're better off putting that money into the supports and services for the clients instead of wasting this money to fight while they're not eligible for it.
Yeah,
Obviously,
I find
process.
I find that like the NDIS will spend $100,000 or $150,000 saying no to a $50,000 application.
Yep, that's not value for money, Jeff.
No, No, and the government's talking about, tightening the belts up and stop the rorting. The rorting itself is coming from the NDIS, the
I also,
bureaucracy.
I also see three really intelligent people here. Like Ree's done counselling, she's done law, she's flown planes. Jenny, you're very educated, and as are you, Jeff, and they treat participants like kids that were taking a handout from them, and we've got to do the right thing, and we have to
Absolutely.
justify. You shouldn't have to justify your disabilities. They're justified. You've got them. It's
And
clear.
they stick you back into this stereotypical pile that you're not competent, you're not capable, you're not allowed to be a homeowner even, because you're obviously not keeping up to standards if your driveway is not in a good condition. Well,
Mm.
like the reality is, for people on a disability, it's hard to get work, it's hard to be able to follow through on these things, and yet I'm trying to manage all of this sort of stuff, and yet they're being paid to get themselves organised, write up all their statement of issues, etc., whereas we need to spend our own private time, spending our life trying to get things together in a way that makes sense to be able to support ourselves at the end of the day, because you can't get the legal representation that we need to even it's Samson and Goliath,
Yeah, yeah. Ree's written some hard emails with how she feels, and for someone that just wants to get out of bed and have a shower and get out into some sunshine, she can't even get outside of her room. It's just, and the NDIS know this. They've known this for months. Bill Shorten's office has known this, and still nothing is happening. No one's stepping in. So I feel like I've spoken a lot for you, Ree, so I apologise. But if
I'm
there's
glad you are.
Sorry?
I'm glad you are.
Well, no, look, if there's anything that I've missed or you want to add, please feel free. I don't want to take over your time.
No, go for it. You're going well.
This is part of the problem with the NDIS is that the amount of bureaucracy. I contacted the NDIS to get an idea of the costings of the NDIS and where the money goes. Right, so I can't remember what it was. 4% of the NDIS goes to or the NDIA funding goes to running the NDIS. 80-something% goes towards employment of support workers and LACs and coordinator of supports causes and all those types of people.
Mm.
I think it's like 3.5% goes towards adaptive technologies like wheelchairs and screen readers and making things accessible. 3.5% of the total 35 billion goes towards wheelchairs and things that we need to do what everyone else takes for granted.
And I don't care what you say. This is the struggle that I have. I don't care if somebody wants a wheelchair that can swim on its own. If you need, nobody who is able-bodied is even going to want to sit in any sort of wheelchair. So why not give them a wheelchair with flipping wings? Or floaties. I got denied a screen reader being blind. I'm simply saying, and I've got some of those through the conciliation process. They're giving me the chicken feed stuff like the screen reader, because I'm saying, how do you want me to manage the hearing if you don't give me a screen reader that's compatible to my work screen reader? You want me to learn other, gestures, etc., etc. I get to that point where they're just being crazy. And, an able-bodied person is able to ride a bike, a scooter, a moped, a motorbike, drive a car, maybe jump on a bus, get on a train. People with a disability can't do all those things. But if they
That's
have a
right.
choice, give them, if they want it, if they are able to use a mobility scooter and be able to get in a car with a support worker, let them. Just let
That's
them.
exactly
Because
right.
seriously, that is called choice.
Yep.
You know, we're not.
Yep.
I'm not. I get really cross that they want to stereotype you and put you into one little bucket. You know, you get a guide dog and you get 5 hours support because apparently a guide dog can read everything on the shelf in a supermarket.
See, that's the other thing is the underfunding, isn't it, Jenny? So like Ree needs 2 people, 2 workers to lift her. She has to be manually lifted from her bed into a shower chair, and that it needs 2 people and a lifter. NDIS are aware of that, and they've only funded her for 1 worker. So we can't, there's not even the funding there. It's managed. I mean, her support worker's amazing. She's just lucky. He's an exercise coach. You know, he's a big guy and he can do this, but it's still not under work health and safety. It is not right. It's a risk. So we're going in for 2.5 workers in the new plan because I want it funded at the maximum rate, 24/7 for her.
Yeah,
but in the meantime, it's not going to run out. But it scares me because now reviews are taking 6 to 8 weeks, and the delays at the moment. I have got another client that hasn't got any money, even though that we lodged the review 5 or 6 weeks ago. So just as well, his support workers are known and friendly with him, and one's gone on leave and the other one's doing it by himself. But Ree needs 2 workers, a chair, a shower transfer system, a lifter, a whole lot of other stuff. But we're picking off the smaller stuff that we can get out of consumables and the low-cost AT, and all of those things are coming through. We've got shower chair coming, but it's only a portable. It's not a transfer system. I ended up getting her a bariatric lifter chair out of a fluke because I hassled one of the LACs. They gave in on that one, but still not the wheelchair. So it's just, we'll see how we go up.
Can I ask, so Ray's been through the AAT process already?
Yep.
Through the hearing
Yes,
process?
I've been through it.
Sorry?
Yes, I went through it.
And what were you successful or not successful?
I was successful in some of the things, you know what I mean? But not everything. But it's really, really draining, you know what I mean? It's who you get on the day.
Yep. So you actually went to hearing?
Went to hearing. Oh, sorry. No, a week before the hearing, they decided, no, they're going to give me this, this, and that. And I thought, okay, just take it because I've had enough.
Yep. Okay. Yep.
Take the little scraps they'll give me.
Yep. That's exactly what I'm saying. They're giving me the chicken feed and saying, here you go away. Look how generous we're being.
Yeah.
And even the things
I'm
yep, that's right. Like what's that about?
Wheelchair in the AAT.
Yeah, like just keep me in bed 24/7, so I can't see anyone. I can't see a doctor. I can't see a nurse. Can't see anyone. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Well, and it's not only does it not matter that you can't get your health looked at. What about social isolation?
They don't care.
And what that does to you psychologically.
They said it's my problem, not their problem.
Yep.
No, that's not right.
It's not right.
Look, a wheelchair to a person who's a paraplegic is, for an able-bodied person, it's their legs.
I know.
Yep.
It's a basic fundamental right to be able to get up and go out and do the most basic things. We're part of the United Nations Charter, and we're still having to go through this stuff with the NDIS. The NDIS board and the IAC, the Independent Advisory Committee to the NDIS board, are not listening. They're not interacting. They're not engaging everyday people. They're isolated themselves.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they've got all the reports, all the recommendations. They know she needs it. Her disability is legit. Everything's in. Why we just got hire and trial, you know?
So you've got
So
33 reports, and they're like $2,000-$3,000 each for a report.
keep going.
Yep.
Keep going.
Yeah. So
16,000 one of them.
well, there you go. So you're looking. You take that. It's getting up to $100,000 in reports alone,
Mm.
Yeah.
and they're still ignoring them. What the hell are they doing?
Yep.
The worst thing I've found with the NDIS is when you're going through the AATs, when they summons all your doctor's reports, hospital reports, your private. They done that to me, and I thought never again.
No, look. When I first went on the NDIS, I had all my information, even my personal care stuff, laid out in front of everyone. And I said, before this, only 2 people knew everything, myself and my doctor. Now anyone can access my records, and I have an issue with that.
Yeah.
It should be confidential between the planner.
Well, nobody needs to know, not even the NDIS. It's got nothing to do with them. If my doctor says I need $5,000 a year for personal care items, that's as far as it should go.
Exactly.
You know.
I get that they need a check system. I actually do, because there is some Dr. How-longs out there. I understand that, but you should be able to go, okay, I'll go to them, and then I'll go to one other doctor to have it validated, that is not your normal doctor or whatever, and you might need to attend 2 or 3 appointments. I get that, because they can't expect to know you in 15 minutes. I get all of that. But what I don't get is this whole insane process. I don't get, look, I think they need to be doctors that are working in other areas. They don't need to be just specialised at the NDIS, because they're going to be the naysayers. But I get that your personal doctor may have sympathies. I understand that and accept that. I just don't get how they can, validate things like Ray, where it's clear and it's evident and undisputable that you're unable to walk, or clear and undisputable that I'm unable to see.
Yes.
Where do you go with those things? There's no, and that's all it should matter. It doesn't matter whether you're struggling with anxiety, depression, or other mental health issues. It doesn't matter whether, it should be able to address all these things.
So, and that's the other thing with the NDIS too, and other people who don't work in the disability field. To the general public, everyone who's paralysed and waist down has the exact same problems. Everyone who's blind has the exact same problems. Or needs the exact same. No, we're all individuals. We have our strengths and weaknesses. The NDIS is supposed to be built on individual needs and requirements. And they're our needs and requirements, not the NDIS requirements and needs, our requirements.
Look, I sort of understand. I think the way the agency has built itself is flawed from the beginning, because I understand that every lack or every agent can't know about every disability. That's reasonable, and they shouldn't, because if they do, they're a genius, to be brutally honest. So I understand that there should be specialists. But as I said, I work in the social welfare field, I work for government. They have what's called professional pracs. And their professional practitioners have specialist areas of issues. So why don't they have these professional pracs that are for vision, for mental health, for, whole range? I could keep going on and on, but specialist with Down syndrome, with whatever the disability might be, they should have these specialists, because then we can they can talk about the span of difficulty between somebody who's paraplegic and somebody who's paraplegic, because you know, there's a span of capacity and ability within there, and that's the difficulty, because they expect everybody, and just because you can do A doesn't mean that it equates to being able and you know, to be able to do B. It's just ridiculous, you know.
I have a question for you, Jenny. So, Ree and Sharon have written to their local federal member. They've contacted Bill Shorten's office. They've got all the reports. They've done everything they're required to do. They've gone through the AAT. What's left for them to do to get the things that they need?
Geez, I wish I knew, because I'm sort of struggling through this on my own, and this is the dilemma I have, that as a community they are very involved in divide and conquer, and not allowing people to be able to get together and say, well, everybody has an individual case, and I absolutely agree with that, but at the same time, people need to be able to feel confident that they're getting the same as their peers, that they don't have to fight for the same thing that their peers are getting. Sorry, I'm not answering your question, because I don't know. The system is so broken that there should be, it should be a one-way process. And what bothers me even more specifically about the process, and what I've been fighting throughout the, you know, case conference / conciliation, if we want to call it that, process, and it's in my view, I've been involved in conciliation arenas through other you know, working arenas, and it doesn't feel the same to me. But what bothers me is they go, oh, it doesn't meet reasonable and necessary, goodbye. And I have asked over and over, I've said, exactly what part of reasonable and necessary are you saying that it doesn't tick? Because it's all very well to use a throwaway line, but if you can't tell me which one of those multiple elements of reasonable and necessary it meets, then we're missing something here. Because how am I meant to argue everything all over again when I believe I've addressed everything? What is it about that? You know, and apart from saying, oh, you keep referring to specialist disability accommodation, SDAs. And I'm saying, well, yeah, I am, because it's in your standards, and it's in your standards that somebody with a vision impairment should be able to. And you're saying, no, I can't as a homeowner. But where does it say that no, as a homeowner it's different? You know, your standards are out there for somebody who's building that specialist accommodation, they need it. But you're saying, no, you don't have to supply it. But you're not saying that anywhere. You just, so what I guess I'm saying is, even their guidelines / standards / legislation is not comprehensively managing this or addressing this in any way. And I don't think it's fair to not give you adequate information by just saying, oh, you know, it doesn't meet that, without drilling it down to be able to indicate why or how. Because I know I've ticked off every one of those points and had OTs address it at length, because I've made sure of that. I haven't let a report go to them until those things have been addressed.
I spoke to Christopher Widows a couple of months ago. You know Christopher Widows? You remember Steady Eddie?
Yep.
The committee. Now, I spoke to him because he had trouble getting onto the DSP and onto the NDIS, and he had cerebral palsy. And he suggested that we have a board that can act on these cases like Ree's and what Sharon has. So that they can push these things along and get these things done straight away. They've ticked all the boxes. They've done everything you can do. The only other thing to do is get someone with authority to push it through.
Yep.
That's what we need. We need an independent committee that can push these things through like a last resort.
Yep.
And look, I hear what you're saying, but you know why that in itself is problematic. I have a son who's got mental health stuff going on, and he couldn't deal with them because of this bureaucracy. He can't deal with this organisational bureaucracy. It's too much. So they kicked him off. So now he's not on there, and I'm fighting to try and get him back on because now he's agreeing that he can be there. But the argument, the difficulty is, even when you do get on, as I said, it was the whole issue of him being able to try and find a support coordinator.
Yep.
It's not like people come to you. When we got to remember, I've got to remember, as we were talking, we're all educated people here. What about those people who don't have that luxury, that have been not given the privileges I feel like I've been given in life or fought for in life? They don't. And even my son, he's my son, for crying out loud, adult as he is, but here we are. And I couldn't prevent what was happening because he was the adult at the time and didn't want to engage. So, you can only do so much at that stage, but he didn't want to engage because it became too difficult, because the first, support coordinator he went to said yes, 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 and then went, oh, sorry, don't have the capacity now. The second one he went to, the third one he went to, no capacity. And it became too hard before he could get a support coordinator, so gave up.
Yeah.
That
With mental health, it's generally a psychosocial recovery coach, which is better because there's more hours and more one-on-one. So I hope you have some luck with him. But even in this instance that we've been, for mid-cost AT, it's been up to $15,000. And the guideline says that all you really need is supporting evidence, and can even come from a GP. So we've done better than that. We've got it done by an OT. And then once you've got that supporting evidence to say, right, you need this mid-cost, the NDIS are just supposed to put the funding in the plan as you request it in $5,000 increments. Then you supply the quote and get the measurements and those sorts of things. So that was in a piece I read on the NDIS in how to get mid-cost AT through, and that's still the guideline. But yet it still falls back to, we want full supporting evidence, we want quotes, you can only have hire and trial. For goodness sakes, just put the money in there so we can buy it. Thanks, you've had it. So they're tripping over themselves, trying to tick the boxes and ignoring the clients.
Precisely.
Yeah, but we do everything we can do. I've been to the AAT myself, and it was a long, hard road, but it still didn't do me any good. The AAT
didn't do me any good either, did it, Ree?
No.
So what do we do when we get to that point and we still don't get the help that we need? So, where else can we turn? Who else can we talk to? Who else can push this along? Who's going to take this action on? Bill Shorten's supposed to be the minister of the NDIS. He should be the last stop resort, but he just refers it straight back to the NDIS.
He does. He does.
So, this is why I started this channel. Where do we go from here? Honestly, I don't know. The only other thing is to go to the media and get public pressure.
Yep.
That's the only way.
And isn't that a great way to have to live, to expose yourself to the world?
When you do that, you're ridiculed by people who have no idea what it's like to have a disability, and you feel humiliated and degraded, and it's like the old saying, just sit in the corner and appreciate what we give you.
Well,
Yeah.
it's that, and in my view, it's about this whole process. You're flogging all the way along. Justify why you need to justify. Just let's talk about how bad things are for you. Let's put you in that pot of negativity for another, for another period of time while you're writing impact statements, while you're writing or speaking to another OT. Let's just put you in your worst possible spot. Let's remind you how bad things can be for you when they are bad. It doesn't allow you to be able to consider strength-based practice, which is what the social welfare system should be about.
And Ree
that's
often
what they
describes herself as, you feel like an elephant with someone in a zoo with someone throwing you peanuts.
Yeah, because they just come around and take photos of you all the time. I've got 5 different OTs, and they're all reports, scans, X-rays, everything, and they keep saying, we don't know really what's wrong with you.
Well, we know that you're paralysed from the waist down. So they just, why they want so much evidence, Jeff, I think it speaks for itself.
Well, this is the thing, because one box might be unticked, you have to go right back to the very start and repeat the whole process.
Yep.
Well, that's why I don't know whether I did. I've learned one lesson. I did think I was being clever in going in with a handful of issues, and as Ray said, she'd gone in there and she's been given the peanuts because the big ticket items are just, or high priority, should I even say, not even big ticket. It's irrelevant whether they're big ticket or not. But the high priority items are just ignored, and they want to just focus on the chicken feed. Well, the issue here for me is I think that was the mistake. I think you should just, keep ticking off one thing at a time, because then they can't bypass that issue. The other issue and that's the lesson I've learned. But the other lesson I feel like that I'm learning in this process is that I did go in with all those box ticked, and that's what I think. There should be some information provision, whether it's developed by legal aid or whomever, to say, when you do this, make sure you have this ticked by the OT and that ticked, because even the evidence stuff, as I said, none of the OT, the first OT, the second OT I had was, well, there's no real evidence out there, Jenny. And I went, okay, isn't there? I'll get back to you tomorrow. And I spent a few hours with Dr. Google and looked at some literature and spent more than the next day rang back and said, I've got you these documents. I'll be back in a week because I've got more to come. Because I really needed to do a lot more reading to be able to make sure, and really felt like I was doing research back at uni all over again to be able to validate every last thing I'd said. And I was like, not from one source, but several, and several valid Australian recent resources. They're out there. But these OTs, that's half the problem. I've used for support workers OTs, or OT students, should I say. So I've been using them, and honestly, really, some of their coursework, if you look at what their coursework is, I've been talking to I'm working with a 4th year OT support worker currently, and she's saying, oh, one of my ones is about how to write your curriculum vitae and put up your resume and how to write your cover letters. And we were doing, that was a whole unit. And then there was another unit on, like interpersonal skills and how to respond in an interview. This was their 4th year, and there was very little in it that was OT based. And even when she'd done a session on ramps and mobility, that was another thing that interested me, because I said to her, is there anything I just had an OT come through, and I thought the OT had done a very sloppy job in my mum's house where she was trying to get some aged care ramps. And I said to her, can you, there's building codes and stuff like that. It was just the response where she just studied it. And I felt like, I know you need on the ground practice. I understand that. But I just felt like if they're not getting the information going through in their final year.
That's part of the problem, like with Ree, like getting the wheelchair. If she gets the electric wheelchair that she needs, that's great. But she still can't get out of the house because the ramp's no good.
Yep.
Exactly.
So what's this having a $45,000 electric wheelchair if she can't go out the front door?
Precisely. And why shouldn't she? Why shouldn't she be able to go out the front door? Why should she have the indignity of somebody even having to? What's the rationale? Somebody can carry her down. What? It's just.
That's right.
No one's allowed to walk on the ramp anyway.
What? Oh, that's crazy.
We've only just had a builder assess it. We've only had a builder assess it about last week.
Yeah,
So
the frame's rotting.
nothing's going to happen tomorrow.
Yeah.
And if you do get a ramp, they'll inflate it.
So a little bit like yours.
But
isn't that ironic?
They say yes to the ramp. The cost will be so far inflated because it's the NDIS.
Yep.
They could probably do it privately for half the price.
Precisely.
And
that's the yeah.
And when I went through the AAT process, it was like when I went through the AAT process, it was like a bartering system where you can have this, but you can't have that.
Yes.
And it's no, I need this. Not case of
Ree's
wanting.
initial quote was $5,000. It's now come in at 30.
So there you go.
Yeah, I can understand why with the structural damage, but it doesn't fix her immediate situation. It's like we need this fixed yesterday. That's why the only thing we can think of is to get like a cherry picker lifter at the immediate time and a piece of board put over the part of the veranda that's by her door so that she won't go through the boards, but at least this board would stabilise it so that then she's got a cherry picker lifter off of that will take her up and down while the new ramp is being built.
And you do realise that people who are using those hoists have to be trained to use them correctly?
Yes, we've done that. Manual handling completed.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, because I know some support workers don't have that training.
They
have to rush off. They have to rush off and get the training and come back. Yeah.
No, absolutely made sure that box was ticked.
Yeah.
Well,
But you've got to have two workers anyway to be able to use it.
I was told to move for these issues that are less than $50,000, and I'm saying, well, do you know what it would cost for stamp duty? And I said, well, can you find me a vision impaired friendly place to move to? Because I've got a huge advantage here that 200 metres up the road I have a railway station where I can actually utilise the train rather than getting a support worker to take me everywhere. But I could, move and ask for some more support work if you like. I could move to somewhere where I'm not getting as much natural light, but you might have to put in 5 skylights so I can actually get some natural light. I could move, but it's this insanity about. And I said, and who's going to help me move? And they're saying, oh well, we can help you move. You just give us an idea of what house you'd like. And I went, are you serious? It's taken me 3 years, and you said no. By the time I put a bid on a house and asked you guys, the house will be sold. It'll be up for sale for a second time round before we get an answer from yourselves, and that'll be a no. I'm sorry.
Why should you have to move, Jenny? You shouldn't have to move.
Precisely. I don't
and
want
Ree
to
shouldn't
move.
have to move either.
It was just the ridiculousness of the concept that and I went, it's not about moving. It's really not about moving. I'm not asking, for my house to be re-stumped. I'm asking to be able to safely move from my driveway, from my, from the front path to my front door, which is only up the driveway. And the driveway isn't really used because I don't use a car. It's only people.
And what they'd be saying, Jenny, is it's a reasonable expense for any homeowner.
That's what I'm saying. That's their rationale, that it's a reasonable expense. Well,
No, it's not.
No.
No.
And that's what they always cite every time.
Yep. And that's the ridiculousness. They cite it, but from what legislation? It's not legislatively based, that commentary. To my knowledge, if it is somewhere, that's what I've asked them. Where is this based in legislation that's reasonable? Reasonable and necessary guidelines are based in legislation. Where is their counter to that in legislation?
Oh, they've got
guidelines.
Chat thing. Would we fund that? That's an interesting exercise because you get a different answer every time you go into it.
Yep.
Would we fund that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Look, we love
So
to have
Ree's in
the
a really bad spot, and we just want to do absolutely everything we can to get into that room.
Well, yeah. I mean, we talk. I mentioned before about unskilled workers coming into the NDIS. I had one person, or actually more than one person, who didn't know the difference between being blind and being vision impaired, and I had to explain it to him.
Yeah.
Just some basic things they don't have a grasp of. How can they do their job if they don't have a basic understanding of the most basic fundamental disabilities?
I'm going to have a ball though if I actually do go to hearing with their independent expert, because they're independent. Part of my agreement, and this was through the case conferencing process, part of the agreement was that yes, I'd accept an independent expert coming in as long as the OT had vision impaired blindness expertise. And yep, well, tick that box, come on in. It was, first of all, throughout her whole report, she refers to a couple of things. She talks to you about the fact that a guide dog has a leash and not a harness. She talks to she indicates that glare isn't an issue because I'm blind, and there's no suggestion that there's any capacity for visual impairment over blindness. And I do have light and some colour vision, and I was able to validate that to her. So it's just like, oh my God. And she says and there was something else I can't even remember off the top of my head, but it's also pathetic. It was also clearly no experience. Give me a break. Don't tell me you understand it. Her experience when I queried her was that she had a colleague at work that was vision impaired.
Exactly. That's what I was told. I couldn't get a talking microwave of them because they had staff members who were blind or vision impaired, and they didn't like the voice that was used. But
what about your independent advisor, Ree? What happened with your independent advisor for the AAT?
You there, Ree? Ree there?
Hello? She's broken up a little bit. I can just hear her. Are you there?
She might be roboting. She might have to drop out and come back in.
Yeah. She had some NDIS advisor come in that was employed by them. Think they were supposed to meet with her 3 times. They showed up once. They charged her $16,000 for an assessment and then didn't do her any justice in the AAT.
Well,
she got to meet her son for an hour before he flew out to France because of their rubbish, that they couldn't actually come down and meet her. They didn't actually do the work. And it was appointed. This person was appointed by the AAT.
It's a conflict of interest.
Yep.
Yes,
Yep.
definitely.
All right, there she is. Did I get that right?
Yeah, she got it right. It was on the 4th time she turned up, yeah. And then they hired a psychiatrist as well. That cost them over 15 grand.
Mm.
The NDIA psychiatrist, but he actually went on my side.
Yep.
Well, that's unusual. Yeah.
I know, very unusual.
Yeah, they usually
That
side
was a good
with
story.
whoever.
Yep.
Yeah, but they usually side for her. Yeah, whoever's employing them, they usually side with.
I was
and that's a
surprised.
conflict of interest. Yeah.
You can't really
But, you
argue
know,
with Ree's case, though, Jeff.
No, you can't. And what worries
Mm.
me is the long-term mental health issues. For Ree and for everyone else who's having similar issues. You shouldn't have to fight so hard for the basics, and it does take a toll. You've got to
It
put up.
does.
Yep.
You've got to put up with your acquired disability and deal with the loss of
Mm.
mobility and the isolation. It has an impact.
Yep. Yep.
100%.
And that's what a psychosocial recovery coach is there for. But what am I supposed to say to Ree is, oh, hey, great, I'm here for you 2 hours a week. That's what it's funded for.
Yeah.
I mean, Ree needs a lot more support than 2 hours a week.
Yeah.
We go over and above because we're doing a review at the moment, so we've got a lot of hours that we're putting in. But, as I'm a sole trader, I've got to watch professional boundaries, of course, but this is my business and I will spend as much time with Ree as Ree needs at this stage. And if she needs someone to talk to, I make sure I'm there for her because she is so
that's-
But not
isolated.
everybody's like you, Sharon.
No.
Not
I know,
everybody.
right?
and living in regional and rural and remote areas, those issues are then magnified because the lack of services available.
Yeah, but remote services actually work in that instance, Jeff. So it's actually a really good thing in that way. I can't get to her, she can't get to me, but we can make contact whenever we need to. So it's good. I've got very good connections with her support worker. So if I need someone there on the ground, I've got a couple of people there.
Yeah.
Which is good. And if she was ever in trouble, they would let me know.
But what if Ree has a falling out with that service provider? Then, because she's in a regional area, that limits her access to services even further.
Well,
So
companies won't take me on because I'm too high a risk because I haven't got the equipment to be able to do anything. That's why I've got to stay in bed 24/7.
Yeah. And again,
she's got a very good support worker.
And that's another thing, like the lack of workers for people who have complex health issues and disabilities. The lack of people, their expertise in that area, again, is magnified in regional and remote areas.
We couldn't want a better support worker for Ree. He is absolutely amazing. And he's very dedicated.
What's scaring me about what you're saying, though, Sharon, is he is an individual. He needs to go on holidays. He needs to.
Yeah, we've got that.
He gets sick occasionally, and he. This is the reality when you've got a disability. He cancelled at the last minute because he's sick and got gastro. Well, where does that leave Ree?
I haven't got the funding in my plan to change anything because companies will not take me on. So I'm in trouble.
And that I recognize. Look, I feel like I fade into insignificance with you, and I get really grumpy. Just before Christmas, I had, stuff happening, and I've been let down 3 times, and then promise somebody was going to come out, and trying to get presents and things for people, and people were meant to be seeing people, and then get cancelled at the last minute. It's like, okay, well, I guess I turn up to Christmas without gifts. You know, like how shit does that make you feel? I can't
Yeah.
go out to shops
Yep.
on my own.
Well, she's got her dad around for informal supports, and there is a second support worker around the property as well that can back that up.
Okay.
So it's not just the one support
Yeah,
worker,
okay.
but he is her integral. So
Yep.
we are, once we get the new plan, obviously we're looking at 24/7. So we're going to get the second 2.5. That 0.5 will be a
Yep.
relief for the other two as
Yep.
well.
Yep.
So we've got it all on our radar, but it's just, as you say, frustrating when you're not funded for it.
And you
Yeah,
can't get anything over the line. It's, you know, you can't get a definite answer and definite, you know, response to what you need.
Mm.
And workers can't get insurance when they've got to work illegally.
Yep.
And that's
Yep.
why companies won't take me on.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah.
But,
And-
you know,
Yes.
but now, like I said before, where do we go from here? Now, what other options do we have when we got to this point? We've contacted everyone we've been through the process more than once.
Mm.
Now
Yep.
what?
So obviously review and then media, or what in whatever order Ree wants it, that's what we'll do.
Yep. And I think that's all that we can do, but we need to stand behind each other and support each other in these processes.
Absolutely.
Because
And this is not an isolated case either, because I know of other people who you know, are in the same boat. They've ticked all the boxes, got all the reports, and they still can't get what they need.
Exactly.
I that's why I logged in today, because I read what I read as far as Ree had been to the AAT. Yes, I had some interest in it, but I think I'm on track as much as I can. But look, you know, I spent 5 hours sort of preparing my legal aid application yesterday, because the form that you send to legal aid, Ree NDIS, is so inaccessible to somebody with a vision impairment. It's not funny. So I handed it over to a support worker to try and help me so I could word it and they could just fill it in. And they couldn't. The first person just went, "Oh, this form's stupid. I don't understand it." You can't cut and paste. If you want to delete something, you literally have to delete letter by letter. You can't delete word by word. And so I've thought, oh, look, this is this person that doesn't know what they're doing. So I've got somebody that's really, you know, savvy with that sort of stuff, because I knew them and grabbed them and got them in here. As I said, It took us 6 hours to be able to fill in one stupid form. And you wonder why. And that was only because I was insistent that we do it. Oh, and the other people that were supporting me, they were insistent that we do it properly and give them all the information up front. So I wasn't going to be asked for, can I have this now? Can I have that now? So in fairness, it was probably information that I probably would have been asked for down the track. But I just went, no, you can have all the information. You can make your decision. If you refuse to give it to me, then I'll walk away with even under pie.
You know, I was talking to someone the other day, and they had a client who went to Centrelink, had to fill a form in, and it didn't have the ability to fill the form in. So he walked up and asked for help, and they said, if you want someone to help you fill that form in, you've got to fill in this form to get someone to help you fill in that form.
Yep. And I know somebody,
same
position. They sent them over to the phone in the Centrelink office, sent them over the phone to ring somebody to ask for them to be put on a list to get help.
Do these people not have coordinators that can help them?
It wasn't even like they were ringing to get help. It was like they're ringing to be put on a list to get help. It's like, oh my God.
Yeah. Look, a good coordinator would help a client with that. I certainly would.
Right. Yeah. But
absolutely.
some people with disabilities won't admit they have a disability and refuse, you know, to access support workers or coordinators. They'd rather do it on their own, but they don't have the ability to do it. So
if they're struggling, Ree would always reach out.
But I know where I live, there's an old lady who's severely vision impaired, refuses to admit it, walks everywhere, and like she's in late 80s.
Yeah.
And, my wife offered to help. Oh, no, I'm fine, dear. I'm okay. She just wouldn't admit it.
Yeah.
That said that vision impairment. So, there are people around who are like that.
Yeah, well, like your gentleman at Target that you showed on your other previous clip, he was doing such a great job trying himself.
Oh, yeah, that cop was being charged, believe it, well, he should have been. But what that James Freeman said, what about the Target staff and the customers who are sitting back watching him and complaining, and they ring the police and had him arrested? No, that's not appropriate. I know that was in America. I know that was in the US, but we do have stuff like that happen here in Australia.
If it was in Australia, generally you'd have a support worker with him, and then it would be try it yourself. It's capacity building to me for that client to do it themselves. It's a good thing.
What was he doing?
Oh, he had an intellectual disability, and he went to Target. He was buying a bike, and it was like a self-service desk.
Yes.
And he was having trouble working out his money and how he paid it, and people were getting impatient. And the Target staff rang. This is in the US. They rang the police. The police come up and criminally trespassed him, forced him outside, and then assaulted him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that doesn't. I know that as a vision impaired person, I'll go into shops and somebody will show me a box and I'll go, well, that's pretty useless to me. I'm just going to open this box and go through the content.
We often have an empty threat to go and have a sit-in front of Bill Shorten's office. Just if camera wasn't so cold, we'd be there, I tell you.
Yeah, exactly. Just the craziness stuff of that. And the fact that staff will go, oh, no, you can't, you got to buy it without opening it. And it's like, well, there's a sticker on there. And I went, yeah, and it's a sticker. It's a sticker. It's a little sticker. It's not, I'm not even talking about, I'm talking about a toaster. I got, like we had security come up when I was in a place because I was opening a toaster. I mean, it's not a health hazard for crying out loud. Like, I'm like, I want, like, honestly, I know it's a toaster, but what are you going to do? Show me the difference between 3 different toasters and all you're giving me is different size boxes? It doesn't work for me. It doesn't. I need to know. I need to know what they are, please.
Yeah.
And I'm very good at putting them back, if at all possible, into the box as it came, because I'd hate to take something home and not find everything in it, so. What do you do?
No, where do you reckon, Jeff? Who's the best ones for us to contact with our immediate situation? Apart from
I don't know.
Is there anyone else that's really the go-to, isn't it?
Well, I'm going to reach out to the Independent Advisory Committee to the NDIA board and see what they can recommend and help with. I was going to do that this afternoon.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, and I'll get back to you. Well, I'll pass your information on if that's okay.
Absolutely, yep.
Phone numbers and email addresses and everything. Because that's what the IAC is supposed to do. They're supposed to advise the board. And this is a perfect example of them, advising the board and pushing it through. So,
yeah. I'd really appreciate that.
Yeah, other than that, I'll be going to the media. Drawing attention. But there are some people out there. I got trolled the other day by a
you got trolled?
Yeah, somebody accusing myself and another person who I've interviewed on this channel of capitalising and making money out of having a disability.
Oh,
Yeah.
you're joking.
That's what we do. That's what we do. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's what
but
we put all this effort and energy.
yeah, but this other person has a disability, and I think this other person who's the trial, I think they're just bitter.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've had a
just
couple of them.
angry. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
I get trolled on Facebook quite a bit because I haven't done everything I'm supposed to have done, but I know I have. So I stand strong in knowing like there's not one stone unturned that I haven't been able to do for Ree, and I won't leave one stone unturned. So they can troll me all they like because I'm doing it for Ree, not for myself.
have you tried going to a service provider? Because I use Aruma. They used to be a house with no steps. Sorry.
What would we go to a service provider for?
Well, to provide extra supports and you know, because I know the manager, the manager I had with the manager I had with here where I live, she's retiring now or retired now. She was brilliant. She knew a lot. You know, I was going to try and reach out to her as well, but she's not well at the moment and just retired. So,
I come from a long list of service providers, and I suppose Ree wants to be able to have her choice and control to employ independent support workers, so she gets that same person every time, and not just whoever they roster.
Absolutely,
So,
I understand that. Yep.
Yeah, and I've got service provider background, and I find them too limiting. And as soon as Ree said she was at risk of self-harm, I've got suicide intervention and prevention qualifications myself, so she's not going unchecked. But if she was with a service provider, they'd be doing safety checks and she'd have the police on her door, and that would take away a lot of her, I suppose, ability to vent openly, because a service provider's got to manage risk. So I suppose we manage it with her support worker, her father, myself, and her having a safe space to say it like it is without judgment.
Yes. Yeah. Look, I understand. I went through a severe depression. After all the stuff I've been through, a friend of mine passed away, and that was the straw that broke the camel's back. And I was self-harming and overdosing, and really, I struggled for a couple of years with severe depression. So I understand that aspect of it, and that's what one of my biggest fears with people in Ree's situation is the long-term mental health issues, and it it might not be today or tomorrow or next year. It could be it could be a couple of years down the track.
Yes,
because that's what happened with me. It's
You've got an excellent counsellor, Jeff, a really good relationship with her. And I see, once we get her out of that room and in a chair with a ramp so she can get outside and in the sunshine, I see this in small steps turning around for Ree.
Well, yeah, like once Ree's got the electric chair and she's independent, she can just go out and do whatever she wants when she wants, and it benefits her mentally and physically, and So look, I understand that, but I will reach out to the IAC today if I can. But I will let you know as soon as possible. Sorry.
Is that your service dog, Ree?
No, it's not coming from this end.
It's funny noise. Probably my end. Sorry.
Might be Jenny. I'm not sure.
Might be Jenny. That's okay.
I'm having.
Oh, she's.
Oh, there she goes. Okay. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about, Ree?
I'm not sure.
You're not sure? You're a bit overwhelmed.
Sorry. Oh yeah, I got lost in my kind of notes.
Yeah. Look, I think with Ree and you, Sharon, you've been able to clarify what's happened and what Ree needs. We just need to get Ree over that line, and you
We
know,
do. Yep.
we'll do whatever we can to help each other, and you know, I'll reach out to the IAC this afternoon and
That'd be
see what
awesome. Thank you
see
so
what they
much, Jeff.
No, look, that's why I started this channel, is because I've been there and I've done that, and I've struggled every which way. And I just want to help others so they don't have to go through it. And
That's
it truly
how I
does.
feel too.
It truly does break my heart when I see people like Ree. You know, it's unnecessary.
It is.
You know,
It is.
and
It's crazy because, like, when they start summoning everyone, I think that's really cruel because they summoned 15 years of my life. You know what I mean?
Mm.
There was nothing
Yeah.
there for them to read because I hardly seen the doctor. You know what I mean? Because I didn't need to.
Yeah.
But still, it's privacy. You know what I mean? They could have just asked the doctor for records from when I had my fall.
Yep. But it
Yeah.
brought up a lot of latent repressed childhood abuse things that weren't necessary in the AAT, Jeff. So they more or less
Yeah.
did a character assassination on Ree while she went through it, and she got spat out the other end without a wheelchair.
Yeah. Look, I've led a really hard, extremely hard, difficult life. My childhood was filled with an alcoholic father that would just, you know, mentally and physically, and you know, whatever kind of abuse you can think of. He laid on not just to me, my older brother, my sister, and my mother.
Yep.
I turned 60 in February, and I always say I've had 4 fantastic years out of those 60 where everything went right. The rest of it's just been struggle day to day, you know, one foot in the other, getting through the day. So, yeah, look, I understand, and that's why I worry about people's mental health, because I've been through it and I understand it, and I don't want to see anyone go through that. I don't want to see anyone struggle like Ree's had to struggle for the basic,
Yep. I really appreciate that because
fundamental,
it's,
to get the most basic
it's good that you
fundamental
two can
things.
connect.
Yes, yeah. And I'd seen Ree on Facebook. Yeah, you know, like I first come across Ree on Facebook. So, and my support worker helps me go through that because, yeah, some of those places aren't really accessible. They're very hard to navigate for someone who's blind. But,
yeah, but look, it's great. I mean, I think you two have got a really good common, a lot of things in common. Ree's a really fierce advocate as well, but she's just so repressed, Jeff. She's losing hope. You know, she's given up the fight in a lot of ways after what she's been through for years and years and years, and I'm not going to let her. So we're going to make sure that she's got a lot of things to look forward to, and we can see some light at the end of the proverbial tunnel.
Yeah. And what I'll do too, I'll get the link for today's stream and I'll send it to Bill Shorten's office.
Thank you.
Thank you.
He can watch it and feel shame. Oh, that's terrible. I know. Yeah.
No, it's important that he does see it. I appreciate that. He can put a voice and a face to a name and an email he's received.
Yeah. Well, we've got to do something. So
absolutely.
Well, I always see him with pictures of himself, you know, smiling with people with disabilities, and I'm thinking, oh, how long does that take him? You know, he must drop in for a photo and then go.
Yeah. Look, did you see that ABC thing that was on a couple of weeks ago, 10-year anniversary of the NDIS?
Yeah.
You couldn't, you know that the media and the government work hand in hand, but that was so well rehearsed.
Oh, yes.
Oh, definitely.
You know, the questions and the answers, it was so well rehearsed, but, you know, we'll see how it goes. But anyway, we're going to have to end it there.
Yep. Today, tonight, here we come.
Yeah, well, yeah, like I said, I'll reach out to the IAC this afternoon, and I'll keep in contact. But
thank you, I do appreciate it.
No, look, I'm there for you. You know, you got my number and
contact
info.
All right, thanks, Jeff.
All right, well, thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Ree. Thank you, Jenny. I think Jenny's
that's awesome.
All right.
Thank you for having us on.
Not a problem anytime.
See you soon.
Thank you. Take care.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
See you, Sharon. Okay, everyone, that's it for today's stream. You've seen for yourself firsthand of people hitting the wall and coming to a complete and utter stop. Okay, we'll just take it for now and I'll let you know, everyone, what's going on down the track. Okay, thanks, Chris.